Welcome to the Alternative Dog Moms podcast. I'm Kimberly Gauthier, creator of Keep the Tail Wagging. I've been blogging about raw feeding, pet wellness, and life as a crazy dog mom for more than 10 years. I've seen massive improvements in my dog's health since I began raising my dogs naturally, and I'm passionate about sharing my experience to help other pet parents.
I'm Erin Scott from the Believe in Dog podcast. For more than 10 years, I've been researching and learning everything I can about healing cancer, allergies, autoimmune, and mystery illnesses in both my dogs and myself. And I can't wait to share with you everything I've learned in case it could help you too. As the Alternative Dog Moms, Kimberly and I are bringing you all the latest dog health news that we're following and the brilliant people we're meeting along the way. Now let's get started. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, Erin.
So we have an amazing guest today. He's been a holistic vet for over 25 years. He's president of the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society, and our guests probably know him from the Raw Pet Medics. So we are so thrilled to have you here, Dr. Nick Thompson. Welcome.
Hey guys, Erin, Kimberly, it's great to see you. I've heard so much about you guys and I see your posts. So I'm in trepidation to talk to you. So it's great to be here today. Thank you.
We see your posts, and I love them, love them, love them.
Yeah, I'm not always on topic, but you know what? People say to me, why are you talking about, I don't know, the human food pyramid? And the reason that I do, and that's the least of the other stuff that I post, because I think all this stuff impacts on us. And if it impacts on us, it's going to impact on our dogs. Yeah. So RFKJ came out in January 2006 saying that he's going to turn the pyramid upside down about time too. And he's going to emphasize that ultra processed foods should be, a small part, and that we should have protein in every meal, and that we should go easy on carbohydrates, which is complete opposite of what you guys have been saying for the last, 40, 50 years or so.
My whole life, yeah.
Yeah, totally. And so I just thought this is amazing because it's going to have a knock-on effect within the raw feeding world, within the fresh feeding world, within people who are actually feeding food rather than this ultra processed stuff we call kibble and cans. So I post stuff which is maybe not directly relevant to food, but I absolutely promise you it will impact somewhere along the line. So Erin, thank you for saying that, and I'm glad you follow, and I hope I entertain and delight you. And I put some spiritual stuff there. Yeah, it's like, let's slow down and smell the roses. Let's look after ourselves. I think that's really important, because if you're not driving the bus, who else is going to drive that bus? The nutrition bus, the looking after your dogs with the care that you are. If you're laid up, you've got heart disease, or you've got Alzheimer's, or you've got cancer or something like that, you're not going to be there to be able to do it. So if anybody's looking at my feed and thinking, why is he putting that stuff? Just remember that it all has an impact on your dog sooner or later. Via you, okay. But you know what? I'm okay with you becoming more healthy, more educated, more aware of where you are in the world. That's an okay thing. And if it impacts your dog, so much the better. Really good. I'm really happy.
I 100% agree. I mean, it's funny because it forces people to ask questions. I mean, question that Erin and I, have probably covered a million times on the podcast is, the fact that in the human world, they will tell us to exercise. They will tell us to eat better food. We have been told that, eating fast food and drinking soda and sugar and all of those things are bad, but that hasn't trickled down to the pet space.
Mm-hmm.
And people are starting to ask those questions like, well, why is this bad for me, but it's not bad for my dog who has a much shorter lifespan than I do? So it would impact my dog a lot more than it would impact me. And so I think your content is forcing people to face that and look at the questions, and also look at the fact that this is a financially driven industry, that they don't really encourage us to ask those questions
Mm.
because it's sort of like, where's the money if everyone is feeding fresh food, if
Yeah.
everyone is making sure their dogs get plenty of exercise, um, if everyone is looking to whole food and whole food supplements versus prescription medications to treat their dogs, I mean, where's the money? What's going to happen to that industry?
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, there's no money in health, guys. You know, they say in the pharmaceutical world, which I do talk about quite a lot, they say a healthy patient is a customer lost. No, yeah, and if they can find a disease that starts really young in life, or they can invent a disease like shyness, for example, then uh, it means they've got a customer for the whole life. And I think that's really disgusting. You know, in China, back in the old days, I'm talking thousands of years ago, they used to pay doctors for the number of healthy patients they had on their books. And so it means if Joe Bloggs came to you and he was sick, that was less yen or whatever they used back in those days. That was less payment for you. So it was in your interest to do everything to treat acute situations, but also and especially chronic situations, because that means they were those people, aka dogs, would be off your books and not making you money. I think it's a genius way to pay doctors. Whereas now, the more sick patients, and it's the same in Europe, the more sick patients you have, the more money you make. So what is your incentive as a doctor to make anybody better? You know, it's a crazy world we live in, and that's kind of what I reflect in my posts. And yeah, you know what? I do it just because I cannot help myself. I think I look at it, I look at the world, and I think this is absolute madness. You know, I was born in '67, and it was better then. There was still some craziness going on, but now, you know, just the last 5, 6 years, especially, we're in crazy land,
Yeah.
and it's sometimes really difficult for people to orientate themselves and get a true line on health and what is important, what is not, what to prioritize, and so yeah, I really appreciate the feedback. You saying that you like that stuff because you know what? I lose almost as many followers as I gain. I only creep up, you know, just a few at a time. Back in the old days, I used to do, you know, hundreds and hundreds. Now it's like I'll lose 261 and I'll gain 258, or the other way around. But I gave up being worried about followers. There's lots of people who are listening to the message, and I think it's a really honest message. And if people can't cope with that message, well, I'm really sorry about that. But you know, that's what the unfollow button is for.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay. It's okay.
So, we're always really curious about origin stories.
Yeah.
And for you, not only your origin story of becoming a veterinarian, but how did this paradigm shift for you come about? Is it something you were exposed to from a young age, or did you have like sort of like this moment of reckoning later in your career?
Yeah. A bit of both, Erin. So I was my mother was a nurse and my father was a doctor. They met in '68 in Oxford in probably I don't know in the mid '60s maybe. And so I was raised in kind of quite a medically orientated, not medical as in you know let's discuss appendicitis over dinner, but it was just you know health and medically conscious. And dad he was a GP. He was a very, very, very good GP. He was very empathetic and super clever. Went to Oxford University and really clever guy. But he kind of combined science with empathy and that communication thing very, very well. And he was a big one for common sense. Okay. So I think I get some of that from Dad, that kind of scientific and analytical way of looking at things. And then from my mother, she was into homeopathy and she was into nutrition and she was into aromatherapy and reflexology and all these things. So that's the other side. It's like, areas perhaps where science finds things a little more difficult to kind of get its head around. And so that's really where I came from, in my background. So then I went to vet college and I went through and I qualified from vet college and I thought, yay, great. I know everything about medicine. This is what you do when you first qualify from vet school. And now I actually know that I know very little and I'm very comfortable with that. But um even I tell you what, during my interview for Edinburgh University, I went to Edinburgh University. If you've never been to Edinburgh, you guys, you must go. It's the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful city. Um, Even at my interview, I was asking about an intercalated honours. So um, the vet curriculum is 5 years long. Okay, in the UK, and what happened was what happens is halfway through you can do like an extra science degree halfway through, and I knew about this, and I asked about the intercalated honours because I thought I would like to know a bit more about science than the average vet student, and I would like to do some bench work. I'd like to do a thesis and do some really deep study and you sit in a library for weeks and weeks and weeks and do some really deep research. That was before the internet, before ChatGPT, when you actually had to open books and find a line and then wander around the library, find another book with the reference and then open it and read it. Those were the good old days.
Agree.
Yeah, it was really great. I used to love it, love it, love it. I love the internet and I love the good side of AI as well. But so I was asking questions because I thought, yeah, I want science. And if I kind of knew that I was going to go into something slightly outside conventional veterinary medicine. So I thought I'd like to get some letters after my name. Yeah. Um, so that just so that it looks like I know what I'm talking about. But at the same time, I wanted to have that background in science so that I could actually have deep level conversations with people about any aspect of science, but especially nutrition and things. So that that's kind of my childhood and vet college and that's kind of how I came to be where I was. What happened? I was working in a practice in Yorkshire, and within 6 months, I was thinking, there's a lot of cases here which I'm giving kind of antibiotics and steroids, but if I was ill, I probably wouldn't take a drug if I could possibly help it. And that's because my mother and father were don't take a drug unless you absolutely have to, which is a very wise way of thinking about these things. And so I was there and I was being conventionally trained vet, and it was drug here and drug there and drug here and drug there. And I just thought, this is strange. So I looked into homeopathy, and within homeopathy, one of the large rules that we go by is to eliminate obstacles to cure. Yeah, elimination of obstacles to cure. That is to say, back in 200 years ago, when Hahnemann was around, he was the first guy who discovered homeopathy. He even then he was saying, well, if you've got a child with TB, you've got to take them out of that damp, dirty hovel. If you spend any chance, if you have any chance of making them well, okay. So the obstacle to cure was a damp, dark, horrible tenement, and it was, the sanitation was really, really bad, and there was no light and all these things. And he realized you can give all the medicine in the world, but if they're within that environment, then they're not going to get better. And so he coined this phrase, remove obstacles to cure. And while I was going through my homeopathic training, I was joyfully giving out kibble because that's how I'd been trained. In my first practice, it was from a large American corporation. I won't mention any names. And then in my second practice, I thought I was stepping up because it was a British made kibble that had really nice packaging, and I thought it was more natural. Okay, so I was here giving, here's lamb and rice. Look at that, isn't that great? And and then suddenly, and I kid you not, this is how it happened. It was like a road to Damascus conversion. I don't know whether I woke up one day, but I just suddenly thought, oh my goodness, the big obstacle to cure in treating dogs is the food. Now we're talking 96 maybe, and I suddenly got it. Okay. One of the guys went over to Australia and brought back this funny white book by a funny guy called Dr. Ian Billinghurst. And I thought, raw food, that's just going to be a fad. It's just, I mean, people with too much time on their hands, la, 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 la. I'll just keep on giving kibble because it's really natural and it's lamb and rice. What could go wrong with that, you know? But then the idea of food being part of the problem suddenly struck me. And that was that's a very long answer to a very short question, Aaron. But that's essentially what happened. Okay. And so since 96, I haven't looked back. I have enjoyed every moment of my raw food journey. When I started, I knew nothing. And I know a wee bit more now, but there's just such a wealth of information. Studies are coming out every day. The raw feeding community is coming together. I'm now the president again for the second time of the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society. You guys can find it on rfvs.info. Please put a link. I know you are very good at doing that. And we want to be the hub, an independent hub where people can come and they can talk to other raw feeders. There's going to be some differences, in how they approach things, but there's going to be more common ground than there is diversity of opinion. And so it's going to be a healthy place where where people can learn, and we're going to have courses, and we're going to have videos, and we're going to have articles and what have you. So it's like a town hall, where it doesn't belong to anybody, doesn't belong to a corporation. Everybody can go there and just be together and just celebrate the beauty of raw food, which is why we all do this thing in the first place. So I can't even remember what the question was.
That answered it.
That answers probably 20 questions.
So, why is it so hard for the vet down the street to kind of wrap their head around the fact that it's the food? Is it just the level of indoctrination, or well, just why is it like there are people who I love who are veterinarians, but I'm just like, what are you Why? Why is this
Yeah.
so hard to grasp?
Yeah. It's great. I'm writing a book at the moment. I've written 200,000 words, and with great delight, I presented my agent with 200,000 words, and she said, "I think 100,000 would be more like it, love." So I'm I'm in the process of turning 200,000 words, which is a lot of words, down into 100,000 words, and I'm actually really enjoying the editing process. And the reason I say that is that I go through this. There's a whole section where we talk about veterinary education, because I think that is the stem of this problem that many vets, they're not taught about real food nutrition, either fresh or raw food, and therefore it's foreign. And they've heard prejudicial tales at vet school, and uh, vet school, it's a little bit like the army. Okay, you know how in the army they break you down and they build you up so that you eat, walk, spit, everything like like an American or a British Army soldier. Yeah, that's how it is similar to vet school in that you are rigorously trained in a certain methodology, and this is right and this is wrong. There's there's a lot of training. There's not a lot of education. I believe other colleagues may disagree, which is why I wanted to do the science, the extra science degree, because I wanted to be able to learn about that scientific learning process. Because at vet school, you're just given loads and loads of information, and you just ingest it and then spew it out in your exams at the end of the year. So it's not really education. It's just rote learning. It's very useful, and I learned an awful lot of great information there. But that's that's the bottom line. So the reason that vets are like the way they are is it's because of that. Okay, they were taught very, very well at college, and it wasn't really on the curriculum. And they have reps from the big food corporations coming in to see them every month or 2 months or 3 months, who are whispering in their ear, "This kibble is really great. It's good for your joints. It's good for your intestine. It's hydrolyzed so they won't get itchy." Okay. They're having those kind of whisper. And the subtext is that raw food is going to give you salmonella, and raw food is going to break teeth, or it's going to cause bony problems. Or did you know it's unbalanced? It is. Every bowl is not balanced, and it's made by the devil. Okay, and yeah, and I'm being dramatic, but basically there's just a massive bias from companies who stand to make vast amounts of money from the sale of these products. And all I ask from my veterinary colleagues, and especially those who are not familiar with raw food, is be critical of raw food, be critical of fresh food, please, but be equally critical of kibble and cans. And explain to your clients what are the pros and cons. Nothing is perfect in veterinary medicine. Yeah, we all know that. But there are pros and cons for cans and kibble. There are pros and cons to raw and fresh. Let's just line them up and then make a decision, as we do in everyday practice with medicines that we prescribe or with surgeries that we are suggesting. Let's say, these are the pros and cons of this surgery, and these are the pros and cons of this surgery. What do you think? And that's what I think we should, as a profession, do. But most vets are pretty scared of raw. And that's why Raw Feeding Veterinary Society .info, we want to bring those vets in and say, listen, it's okay. Let's just have a really honest, open conversation, so that you can ask any question you want and not be shot down for it. We can talk about what are the common questions that vets ask and that non-vets ask. But yeah, I think when I first started, mid-90s, raw and fresh was a dirty word. Now, I think most vets are kind of, there are very few which are anti, and most are kind of, well, if you must, do it sensibly. And there are even a few who are pro raw and fresh food. So I think we're making progress. It's only taken 30 years. But I'm pretty happy with that. Things have changed. I notice the change in my lifetime. Even in the last 10 years, things have changed a lot. And you guys coming along is just helps us vets who are trying to get a sensible, species appropriate message across. You guys are gathering information, and you're disseminating it to dog owners, dog pet parents, guardians. So you guys are really, really strong in the fight for a balanced conversation about nutrition. And that's all I ask. I don't want favoritism. I don't want you to jump over backwards and say, "Oh my goodness, raw, raw, raw." No, just be thoughtful about all this stuff that we call food. That would be my plea to the to the veterinary profession. Vets, vet nurses, vet techs, get on board. Use your brain. You've got a brain. Use it to think critically about these things, please.
One thing that I've experienced is I've been able to change the mind of nearly every veterinarian that I've encountered over the past, I think it's been 13 years that I've been feeding
Yeah.
raw,
Wow.
except for a wildlife veterinarian who I assumed that the wildlife veterinarian would be on my side. They
Totally.
were very against what I did, and but everyone else. And I started by asking them what their concerns were, and
Yeah,
then addressing each one. And
that's
by the time I
brilliant.
finished, they weren't pro raw, but they were okay with what I was doing. And now
Yeah.
I don't have a I'm not like if I have to change vets, I'm not stressed out because I have to find a holistic vet that supports raw
Uh,
feeding. I can go to any vet. And because my vets that I go to now are traditional vets, big, gigantic bags of kibble. We have the vaccine conversation every time my dogs go in, and I'm able to address it logically, calmly, and with science, and just explaining
Yeah, but
why.
Kimberly, you're a diplomat, you know? A lot of people, and you're probably not scared of the vets, which I think helps. Most people are terrified of their vets,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
I use
or they're not terrified, but they just don't wanna get on the wrong side, or they don't want to offend them, you know?
mhm,
It's intimidating, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I
And I
think
think
most
it's one
people
of those we
feel
need
like
to
that.
start practicing
Mm,
because it's like what changed for me was, well, Rodrigo. I had to advocate for him. He would have died so much sooner than he did if I didn't step in, and basically I was the wall between the vet and him. The vet
yeah,
had to go through me to get to my dog.
yeah,
And it's like when you realize that, and also I had to let go of the feeling that my vet was stupid or mean or just in it for money. I had to let all of that go. And
yeah,
I had to just understand that from where he was coming from, this is what he knew, this is what he practiced. He's the one with the degrees. I had to have respect for all of that, but I also had to help him see that I'm living with this dog on a daily basis. And you may know science and veterinary med. I know this dog. I'm an expert in this dog.
gotcha.
And we had to figure out a way
Mm,
to get there. And it took me basically trying with a vet, and then if it's when it stopped feeling comfortable, going to another vet. My heart breaks for the people. I mean, I live in Western Washington. I can go outside and scream, "Hey, is there a vet here?" And 10 will show up at my door. They're everywhere. But there are places where people are driving 3 hours
yeah,
to get to a vet, not just, their preferred vet. And that is one of those where I'm glad, like you mentioned, the day that we're in, that more vets are doing, like telecommunication
mhm.
to give people more of those type of options. But it's one of those where I really just want to encourage people to really get behind why you're doing what you're doing, because that's where it gives you a little bit more confidence when you can articulate what you're doing. Because, yeah, in the moment, it's intimidating when they start throwing, well, you need to get this vaccine because da 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 da, and stuff like that. And I learned to just say, well, let me go home and think about it, and just get out of the door with my dog without getting the vaccine.
Yeah, but that's a real shame, isn't it? Because it's supposed to be a two-way street.
Yes.
Yeah, it's supposed to be that they are your advisor, and
Mhm.
between you, because of informed consent, you weigh up the options and you decide on the best path for you, depending on the dog, depending on the owner, depending on the finances, depending on a whole number of things. And I think that is the way it should be. I've actually done a vid at the Billinghurst Institute called Raw Conversations, and there are actually two. One is for owners to help them talk to vets. Yeah, we go through lots and lots of different examples and techniques to try and get the message across calmly and um, to your satisfaction. But also, I've done another one for vets to talk
Nice.
to owners about these things. I don't think that one's selling very well,
But it
but
can.
but it's there. Yeah, the Billinghurst Institute. There's those two Raw Conversations videos if people want to jump on. That's great. But basically, yeah, your vet is not wrong. It's just that they are seeing things from a different perspective. You know, I'm just trying to think of a good example. It's like, if there's a road traffic accident, okay, and there are three observers. Yeah, you had Mrs. Jones who was on the corner, and then there was Mr. Smith who was outside the deli, and then there was Mr. Rodriguez who was walking his dog. Right? If you ask them, those three people, what happened for that single event, you're going to get three different stories. Okay, and that's just a 1 second bam, and the accident happened. Can you imagine if you got 5 years worth of vet school against the owner who's got 5 years worth of experience with their dog? Yeah, can you see how divergent those two
Yeah.
stories are going to be possibly? So I think there's a lot of work that uh we have to do. You guys, me, Raw Feeding Veterinary Society, everybody, but I think we shouldn't be blind to how far we've come in the last 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the world is in terms of holistic medicine, of being a balanced, critical thoughts about pharmaceuticals. I think we've come a long way. I used to get shot down left, right, and center, but nowadays people generally leave me alone. Just
Yeah.
kind of get on with it and make my funny posts on Instagram, and yeah, I have great clients, and I have really interesting. I was talking to some clients just now. They're from the States, actually. They are kind of near New Jersey, and we were just talking about medicine and veterinary medicine and things like this, and that's kind of what I do, and it's great. I love it. It's just talking to interesting people all around the world. We, having uh, talking about holistic medicine, talking about food, talking about we often talk about vaccinations and pharmaceuticals and things like that, as you can imagine. But yeah, it's it's a great way to be. And this is where I do my consulting. This is my office. You see the herbs behind me? Oh, you can hear.
Yeah.
See, I got all my herbs here. So I do herbs. My homeopathics are over there. My laptop is just down there, and food. It's it's all up here. That's why writing the book is great, because all this stuff that I've been carrying around for so long, it's all coming out, and it's so good.
So, I think they estimate, at least in the US, that
Yeah.
I guess about 95% of pet parents are feeding kibble and 5% are doing other. Is that statistic true, or do you know if there are any statistics over in the UK? Does that hold
Yeah,
true, or
yeah, I think it's a little bit higher than that, actually.
That's
I
what I
think,
was wondering.
yeah, I think it's higher. I think it might be higher in the States, but I don't know. You'd have to ask around for that one. But I've speaking a few years ago with a guy called Magnus Pettersson, and he runs Mush. You know Mush? Mush is a brand that they're selling in Finland and in Sweden and in Germany and uh, in kind of the Central Europe area. Pretty big company. So he would know, and his estimate is that it could be up to about 30% are feeding some or all raw food.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, which is really pretty amazing. If people ask me, I usually make it slightly conservative and I say about 15 to 20%, some or all raw food. And that means that for vets who are watching, hello, that means that if it's 15 to 20%, that means every 1 in 10, or maybe even 2 in 10 people who are walking through the door, they're feeding some or all raw food. Okay. And if you're not able to have that conversation with them, then that means you're possibly 15, 20% out on your communications with that person. There's many a raw feeder. Do you get this in the States? There's many raw feeders who just don't admit what they're feeding to the dog. They just kind of
Yeah.
skirt over the food
Oh,
conversation.
yeah.
Do you have that?
Oh,
Have you
yeah.
heard that?
Oh, yeah.
Kimberly,
Big
have you
time.
heard that? Erin, have you heard that?
100%.
Mhm.
You just don't mention it. Okay. And a medical conversation without food. I mean, that's crazy, isn't it? It's like saying your car has stopped in the middle of the freeway and not checking whether there's any gas in it. It's the same. It's the same conversation. Yeah. So, um, yeah, that's so I reckon 15-20%, and among people that I talk to, it's it's much higher than that. But I think that there's a lot of people. I mean, finance, the cost of feeding raw food is an issue. I think that a mid-range raw is going to be about the same price as a mid-range kibble, so there's a lot of parity there. But I think there's a lot of people in the UK who are barely able to feed themselves, and so they have to go for the economy. And you're not going to find uh, decent quality raw in the economy section. Okay, that's the only way to get down to those rock bottom prices is to feed ultra processed kibble and cans, which tells you a lot about what they have to put into those products in order to be able to get the price so low. I think there's a lesson in that.
Yeah, I mean, I do some volunteer work where we do free veterinary care in under-resourced communities
Sure.
and try to help people, keep their pets without entering shelters, and it's like we'll see the same dog over and over again. I mean, we had one dog where we were recommending a Tika, for chronic ear infections, and it's like, I know that it's because they're feeding this cheap rock bottom priced food, it's something where I really start to struggle of like, are we doing any good here? Because we have the pet
Yeah,
pantry that's, just giving you this food.
absolutely. I mean, that's the obstacle to cure. If you're feeding a dog, if you're putting really bad fuel in a car, you can take it to the garage or the garage, as you guys would say, as often as you like, and it's never going to run properly. Yeah. So if you spend a few more dollars on good fuel, well, you probably won't need to go to the garage quite as often, most likely. And that is definitely the case. Do you see that? It's quite a difficult metric to measure whether raw fed dogs go to the vet less. It is, and there are some studies coming out,
Dr.
but
Brady, right?
yeah, I mean, he's doing the study with Wiley's, and there is some information coming out of there. That's yeah, but every person that I talk to says I went raw, dog got better. I go to see the vet a whole lot less. That is universal, more or less. Yeah, I really find that. Do you
Oh,
find that
yeah.
in the States?
Yeah, I find 2 things happening. That or, I switched my dog got sick. Switched my dog to fresh food. I did see great improvements, but then my dog died, and I got a new puppy or a new dog, and I started on kibble again. It's sort of like this disconnect that the reason why your dog was sick partially was
Mhm.
because of the diet that you were feeding, and and there's that disconnect there. And there's
Yeah,
it's but, I am seeing raw feeding become more mainstream in, people's eyes because we have local, like, groups. I'm sure there's are all around the world, but, like our Snohomish County group where we'll just be in there and people who are homesteaders will be like, "Hey, we just butchered, um, I have a bunch of organs or I have a bunch of chicken feet. Is anyone interested?" And it is like, we're breaking our backs, twisting our ankles to get to the comments to claim this food.
yeah, yeah,
And it's
great.
just like, I mean, it's not hundreds of people, but, it can be comments of 25 people either saying, "Hey, I'll take it," or "How much do you want for it?" or people tagging friends
Mm,
because they know. And that is, to me, is so exciting. I'm grateful that I have my connections around the area, so I don't
mhm.
feel too bad when I miss out, but it's just every time I see something like that, it's so exciting.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And getting that fresh material. I mean, most people would turn their noses up at chicken feet. My wife is half Indonesian, and her mum lives just here, like 20 meters away, and they go crazy about chicken feet. They'll gnawing on chicken feet, and let's face it, they are very good for collagen and all these good things, great for your skin and what have you. And it's that whole thing about the diet of the ancients with loads of fermented foods and loads of bone broth and no ultra processed foods and no refined sugars, no refined flours, no refined carbohydrates. And people were healthy. They didn't die of many of the things we die of today, those non-communicable diseases like cancer and heart disease and what have you. They would die of being charged by a bull, or they would die of old age.
Mhm.
If they made it past 5 years old as a kid, then the likelihood is that you would make it into your 60s or so. And people will say, well, nowadays we're living into our 80s. But yeah, but your last 10 or 15 years may not look too pretty,
Yeah.
So I think here we go, wandering into probably territory that we should wander into. But yeah, I think modern medicine is very clever, but I think it needs it should rely on philosophy more than perhaps it does.
Mhm.
I
Do
think.
you have dogs?
Oh yeah, we have three. They're downstairs, and so sometimes I'm doing podcasts, and they'll be howling downstairs, and you can hear it through the floor. We have three. We have Bluebell, who came to us. Maybe she's born 1st of April, so she'll be 7 in, where are we? February, March, April, in a couple of months, maybe just less. So she's a Whippet Italian Greyhound. She's called Bluebell because on the 1st of April, the bluebells. I'm just looking at the woods here from my window. The bluebells were coming out, and she was a kind of grey color. So my daughter Ophelia, she named her, and we just thought Bluebell. Oh, perfect, that's great. So we call her Bloob, which is spelled Bloob, Bloob. Yeah, okay. And then she's got a half sister who's like a couple of years younger. She is called Mouse. And she's a Whippet Italian Greyhound. But the thing is, uh, Bluebell's dad was a big Whippet, no, a big Italian Greyhound, and mum was called Betty, and Mouse's mum was Betty, but her dad was a really small Italian Greyhound. So we've got Bluebell, who's here, and then we've got Mouse. She's aptly named because she's really tiny and really cute, and she's my favorite. But then, don't tell anybody. I hope they're not watching. And then we have Jet, and he's about 2 years old, and he is a rescue lurcher. He's black, and he's called him Jet because he's really fast, and he's really black, and he's really skinny, and and he's been with us for 2 years, and he's a great lad. He was a nightmare for the first 6 months, and but he settled down and really good to go. I was just with them up on the hill just behind me here today, and just seeing Jet just go past at like 35 miles an hour is just a joy. It really is. He was chasing a rabbit, okay? And this rabbit's like, oh my God, it's a lurcher. You know, I wish it was a fat Labrador. In fact, instead it was skinny lurcher. Really, really he's really muscly. but he's really skinny. And he can move like the wind, you know, and the rabbit was like, "Woo." But the rabbit got away. For all the rabbit lovers, rabbit got away. But and Jet, I just saw him downstairs before the show. He's wandering around the kitchen like I do after the gym's like he's like this. And I said, you shouldn't chase rabbits. And yeah, it's hilarious. They're great. They're great.
So what do you feed your dogs? I have to ask.
Oh, I feed them kibble, best quality kibble.
Is it holistic?
Of course, yeah.
Organic kibble.
Don't feed raw. God, you'll get salmonella. No. What do we feed? Here, what we do, we feed. Well, the story is. Okay, I'll tell you what we feed, and then I'll tell you the story after that. Okay, so my wife Ellie, I walk the dogs and she feeds the dogs. Okay, so she's half Indonesian, and so she loves to cook every single day. That's an Indonesian thing. Okay, and so what she'll do is when I go out with the dogs, she'll get some spring greens or some cavolo nero cabbage, yeah, just leafy greens. She'll chop those up and she'll put them into the frying pan. The frying pan is usually there from the morning because Arthur, my son, he always has bacon. Yeah, but he has bacon and eggs for breakfast in the morning. And so there's this pan with this beautiful bacon grease in it. Okay. And that is left over from the morning so that the dogs can have a bit of bacon grease on their veggies. Okay. It's a really good plan. If anybody's watching and they think, oh no, how do I make my dogs eat some veggies? That's a pretty good plan. Okay. You heard it here first. Although Kimberly's already said it, I have no doubt, but I bet she hasn't said bacon grease. Okay. So, she will get that and we often have bone broth for us, and she will use a little splash of bone broth into that. Okay. And then she'll just leave it to saute at a very low heat. So it's more like wilting rather than cook, you know? So it's wilt for 10 minutes or so. And then she'll switch it off and it will cool down. And then we get some really good 80-10-10. It's quite a chunky mix. It's really good. And they will get that. And there'll be maybe a few scraps, a little bit of whatever we're eating on top of that. So it's all a bit of a hodgepodge, really. That's how we feed them. I always tell my clients, if you can do kind of block rotational feeding, you feed venison for a week and then you feed rabbit for a week and then you feed turkey for a week, something like that. That's really good. And I fundamentally believe that is a good way to do it. What do we do at home? The answer is it's the first thing that comes to your hand when you reach in the freezer. Okay. Honesty. I'm just being really, really honest. So it's the first thing that comes out. We don't deliberately go for variety. Variety just kind of presents itself. And in the mornings, Jet gets 2 chicken wings, and it's a joy to watch. Okay, so he gets chicken wing, and he goes crunch, 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 and then he goes like this, and he goes crunch, 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 and then he goes. Except he does it. He does it by tossing it in the air.
Oh, wow.
I love it.
It doesn't even touch the ground. Okay, he's a pretty tall guy. So he just goes like this. And he'll do on a chicken wing, he'll do maybe 6 or 8 crunches, then down the hatch.
Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. Okay. Never had a problem. The girls, they kind of sit and cry, nope, in a kind of whippety sort of way. And they get through theirs. But what I'm saying is they get chicken wings, raw chicken wings every single morning. And that's great. And so essentially that's what happens when my wife is in charge. Do you want to hear what happens when I'm in charge?
Yes.
Okay. So what happens when I'm in charge is I will only give Jet the chicken wings because Bluebell is carrying too much weight. Yeah, she's mine. She's raw fed and she is overweight. Okay. And it's because she's an appetite on legs. As soon as you open the front door, she'll go up to where the chickens and the peacocks, their food is, and she'll go and dive into that. Yeah. So it's like a high carb layers pellet. Okay. And when she goes to see Ellie's mum next door, the first thing she does, she goes for the cat food, which is raw. I hasten to add. Yeah, yeah. Because the cats eat the same as the dogs. And where was it with my story? So, yeah. So when I'm cooking, when I'm prepping for the dogs, I don't have time to do that's the story I tell. I don't have time to do the veggies. So I will get out of the freezer the night before, I'll get the mince and then defrost it. And I will get these 3 bowls and I will go big load for Jet, and then medium load for Bloob, and then a smaller load for Mouse. And then I'll look into the cupboard, because people send me samples all the time. Okay. Just like this. So I'll say, oh, look, there's some, can you see that? There's some turkey tail. All right. So I said, right, guys, you're having a little bit of turkey tail today. And then I'll say, oh, look, somebody sent me some plakoff. All right. Yeah. Some seaweed. So guys, you're going to have some seaweed today. And then here you go. I'll just reach. I didn't prep this, by the way. See. And here you go. This is literally how I do it. Okay. And this is, I do say to people, oh, have I got out of focus? Hang on, I'll come back in. Oh, hang on. Do. Can you see me? No, hang on. There you go. No.
There we go.
There you go. That's back.
Well done.
My system is too clever for its own good. Okay. So, Lee Carroll.
Oh, yeah. I have that in my cabinet.
Chaga, yeah.
Chaga. Okay. And then reishi, which is, as far as I can make out, is good for absolutely everything.
Yes.
It's good for longevity. It's good for your immune system. It's, how do you say the cancer thing without mentioning the cancer thing? Anyway, it's good in that direction as well. It really is. It's amazing. So I take those as well because I'm getting on and I need all the help I can get. And also we use this. So they get a bit of that, whether it's flea or tick season or not, because it's full of herbs. And so you get the picture. They get a cocktail when I'm in charge. So Ellie will take about 20 minutes to feed the dogs. I will take about 2 to feed the dogs. Okay. And they really, really miss their mummy when she's not around. And the girls don't get a chicken wing in the morning because Bluebell's big and Mouse is at the top end of normal for her height and her breed, and Jet needs feeding up. So there you go.
Yeah.
That, dear Erin, is how we feed the dogs. Oh, and they get olive oil, actually. I forgot to say. So Jet gets a big dollop of olive oil because he's so skinny. And the 2 girls get a smaller amount because it's very good for their coats. If there's any fish oil, they'll get fish oil. And that's it. It's kind of how we feed the children, really. Yeah, in that with kids, you just write what's available, right? Let's feed them that. You don't say, oh my goodness, how much magnesium are we going to give the children today? It's like, oh, how many grams of protein in this thing? You don't, you just feed them. You feed them until they're full. You just kind of make sure that you get your macros. Have we got some fat in there? Yes. Have we got some greens in there? Yes. Have we got some protein in there? Yes. Okay. Off we go. That's kind of my approach. If you want to make it more complicated, I could talk to you about it all day. Okay. That's what I do for a living. However, I find most dogs that I know are not very good at reading. And so they just don't read the textbooks. And so, all these yards of blogs and all this stuff about you must have this and you must have that. Well, I think you just got to feed really great food. You've got to feed variety. Feed raw if you can. If that doesn't suit your dog, absolutely fine. Just don't touch kibbled and canned food. You see that they're comparing even actually over here in the media, they're comparing ultra processed food with cigarettes. Yeah, they're saying it's kind of the new, like in the 1956, Hill came out with his study saying, oh, you know what, guys, I think cigarettes are bad for you. Well, I think that kind of revelation has just started, and people are waking up. Oh my goodness. Why the obesity crisis? Why the diabetes crisis? Why the incredible rise in heart disease and cancer and Alzheimer's? Yeah. Maybe food has got something to do with that. Okay, there's a lot of other things as well, but maybe food has got something to do with it. And I think the penny is dropping as we speak. I think this is a time of change, and it's really exciting to be within that at the front of that conversation, if you like, in the raw food world, which is superb.
I think your answer there is a huge relief to all the people who are intimidated by spreadsheets involved in feeding their dogs. So I know Kimberly's happy to hear that.
I
Oh,
know.
really? I didn't know. I imagine you guys are like super, super practical, but I think because feeding is so simple, as long as you get the basics right, feeding is so simple, it means that everybody can have an opinion, and they're probably mostly right about most things, and it works for their dog. Great. It works for your dog, And I think that if you've been doing it long enough, you learn that you just need to relax and just make sure you get the basics right. So for me, it's just get the basics, get variety. If you've got variety, you're very, very unlikely to get excess or deficiency disease,
I was just
And
thinking of Brian Branfus. Whenever I hear someone speaking this way, I hear him just like, That's what I keep trying to tell people." 'Cause
who is
he's
this guy?
he is a friend of mine. He works for a raw food company here in the States, and
Uh-huh.
he is pretty phenomenal, but he's always trying to basically trying to, um, refute the message that raw feeding needs to be perfectly balanced by,
Spreadsheets.
with spreadsheets and software and stuff. And he and I go back and forth a little bit. I agree with him in 100%.
Yeah.
I like to use software
Mm-hmm.
because I use it as a learning tool
Yep.
to better
And I
understand
think
what
that's
I'm
totally
feeding.
valid, but do you do it every single day? If you
No,
change the broccoli for
exactly,
spinach, are you going to recalibrate and go, "Oh my
exactly.
God, the magnesium's down 1 milligram"? You're not. Okay, some people will. And
Mhm,
what I'm saying, you know, if you want to use software, absolutely great. But I think you've got to take a thought of, if you eat half well yourself, then that's a really, really good guide. If you want to just get some early recipes, it's like when you first start making any recipe. When you first start on that recipe, you will follow the recipe, yeah,
mhm,
and then you'll get a feel for it, and you only need to glance at it the second
exactly.
time. And then after that, you don't need it at all, because you get the shape of the recipe in your head, and you know
Yep,
that this goes in with this and this goes in with this. And that's great. I haven't got a
yep,
problem with that. But I think people getting hung up on how many milligrams of selenium,
mm,
or what's the omega-3 to omega-6. As long as they're pretty close, then you're in a good space. Um, so I think we're talking food. There's that whole thing about nutritionism and food, and they're kind of two different things. So uh,
yeah,
get the basics right, and more or less the rest will take care of itself. But talk to people and just compare recipes, just like you compare recipes for a cake or for a casserole. You just compare recipes and you go, "Oh, that's a good idea. I'll try that, a little bit of
mhm,
that next time." If I had to go to a desert island, there's just a few things I would take. I'm assuming I can get meat from the wildlife in the jungle, on the desert island. Okay, so I would take bone broth, or a way of cooking bone broth would be number one. If there were no berries on the island, I would have a big freezer full of berries, because I think they're a really good addition. And because there's fish in the sea, would be okay. I would feed fish rather than fish oil. Fish oil is just kind of really convenient, but you've got to get good stuff, low mercury, good, filtered and all that stuff. Um, And I would just take great delight in giving the dog pretty much what I ate and giving loads of variety. And some days you wouldn't eat at all. Some days you would stuff your face. And most days, I don't eat breakfast these days. And so I would have kind of a 16-hour non-eating window personally. So the dog is going to have to get that because the dog's not going to eat if I'm not eating. So yeah, there you go. That's super, super. I've never described it in quite such such simplicity before. So that's how comfortable I feel being on this show.
Well, that's amazing. No, that's amazing for people to hear, and a relief, I think, sometimes.
Yeah,
I hope so.
I agree.
You know what? I think I really love seeing these incredible bowls that you see on Instagram. It's like you've got a duck's head over here, you have a lizard's hock over here, and then you have an egg from a I don't know, a blue spotted mongoose or something, and it looks unbelievable. Yeah, you got a little bit of orange up at the top and a little bit of seaweed at the bottom, and it's all balanced and it's feng shuied and it's amazing. And I think that's great because it just shows how there is beauty in food, and we are, reappreciating food rather than a bowl of brown nuggets. But I think that for the number of people who are inspired by that bowl, there are 99 people who are feeling really, really, oh my God, my dog's dinner looks like a dog's dinner, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It's-
I
Yeah.
actually did a video
And,
last night about
and
that.
yeah. And I should take a picture. I'll tell
Yeah.
you what. Okay. Here's a promise. Next time I do the dog's dinner, I'm going to take a picture of it and I'm going to post it and go, this is what my dogs are eating this
Yeah.
evening. And it's just going to look, it's a mess. It's got some powders on it and it's got a bit of drizzle of olive oil. And that's about it.
Yeah, we call it Messy Bowl Monday.
Yeah,
Messy
that's
bowl.
what it
Well,
is.
if
Messy
I'm
Bowl
in charge,
Monday.
Ellie and the children are off to Indonesia, okay, to go and see the rallies over there. So actually, I'm in charge of feeding the dogs for 2 weeks. I think they might leave home. I will do them with some veggies here and there, but they're not going to be happy until mommy gets home. Yeah, so there you go. It's all fun. It's all good. But I'm going to be working hard, and so I'm just going to be eating a lot of steak and broccoli. That's about it, really, I guess.
Oh my gosh. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you for sharing all that. I know you have courses, you have a book coming out. Tell us all the things.
Okay, I think the main thing is let's all get together. The Raw Feeding Veterinary Society, rfvs.info. Check them out. Check us out over there. Come and join. It's free to join, and there's lots of information. You can join the community, and you can share ideas and studies and learn from others and what have you. It's independent. It's an independent group. Yeah. So that's the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society. My website is holisticvet.co.uk because I'm in the UK. And what else? Instagram is Holistic Vet UK, Holistic Vet UK. And what else? On Facebook, I'm not sure what that is. I think it's something like I don't know. If you
We'll
just
find it.
have a look at Nick Thompson on Facebook, you'll be able to find me there. And there you go. But yeah, I think people just need to keep it simple and enjoy the journey. I always say to my clients, if you're not enjoying your raw food, you're doing it wrong. You're either too much spreadsheeting it or
Oh my
you're
god.
making it too difficult for yourself. I'm not saying spreadsheets are bad. Spreadsheets are great, no problem. But if you're living by micrograms of protein, then you're going to live in purgatory. So I think keep it real and use your spreadsheets. It's great. Use a recipe to get you on the right start. The key word is only one word for the whole of Raw, whether you're spreadsheeting or whether you're doing percentages. It would be variety. Just keep feeding that variety, and you with each variation, you can do it on a spreadsheet if you like. We're good to go. Seriously. It's food. It's not rocket science.
Oh my gosh, that's the mic drop moment right there.
Yes,
Kimberly.
exactly. I know.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for your time today.
Erin, Kimberly, it's really, really great. I haven't let you get a word in edgeways, but I look forward to catching up with you again soon, yeah?
Thank you.